This is Jimmy Martin from the Speaking and Music Show at YouTube. Thanks for listening to the Nursery Podcast.
Hello, Mom and Dad. I thought this might be a good time to make a tape for you since, I've had 2 days of work and I thought it seemed like I had a lot to tell you about my new job, even though I don't know yet how much what it'll be like. But a lot of little things happen, and I thought if I told you about it now, then there won't be so many things like next week. I have so many new things I won't be able to remember more. It's Sunday morning.
It's cold in this neck of Ohio tonight, and the style is right for a sad winter song. I feel lost like a speck in a pile out of sight, and though I try with all might, I just don't feel that strong. As we walk through a field trekking on snowy dirt, my eyes start to hurt trying to see a smile. And we talk about fears making our story short. You are scared to get shot, your bravery goes for miles. And there's more miles to go as we walk the train tracks. I think we lost the rain back in the woods we just hiked. And the store signs can glow as you walk sidewalk cracks. I think we lost the town back trading street lamps for kites. The nursery and all of the trees crossed over the dark, and some old parking lots hold my whimpering thoughts, and I'm on the next train. You and me, can't you see what this means? In the light of a torch, realize nothing is forced, nothing is forced.
Hey everybody, welcome to Nursery Podcast. My name's Boyle.
I'm Heather Seno.
And today we're sitting out on Heather's porch and want me to say where we are?
Yeah, I don't care.
Somewhere in Ohio, particularly Hubbard. And I just drove through this pretty wild storm where all of a sudden it's that kind of storm where telephone poles and trees start to look like these little windsocks. Like the storm just gets them, and you see like pretty big things falling on the road that you're like, wow. If that can fall, what would it have done to me, you know?
Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah. And so I was on my way here from work to interview people. If you follow this podcast long term, the way I know Heather, I think, is through somebody we actually had on the show named David Prokrivnak, who did Bitter Alums.
Yeah.
And I think it was through concerts and stuff like that, correct?
Yeah.
And so, similar to a guest I had, a good friend of Heather's, Dana Mooney, that I had on earlier, Heather does visual art. So you want to talk to the listeners about what kind of art you do?
Oh gosh. I knew this was coming, but a little bit.
Here, let me ask you more. What do you focus on the most in your visual art? What's the meaning behind most of it? You know?
Okay, my overall theme. Well, lately I've just been unable to create anything that's not in this theme, but it's all what I'm trying to think of how lame my Instagram bio is. It says something creating artwork against current rape culture or something like that. So that was one of those it's hard for me to talk about my work, but then I sort of like have these blackout moments where words just come to me and it makes sense and it's all clear, but then when I try to like remember them, I'm like a bumbling moron.
Well, I mean, maybe it's fitting that you have a chance to put words into your art, because if listeners don't know your work, I have to explain to them you use mixed media a lot and you use words in your art a lot. You use like kind of a required reading in the art.
Yeah.
So what's that like?
Sometimes it varies. So lately I think I started out doing, like scrawling like words in the piece, and then a little bit last year was my last year of college. In my second to the last semester, I started using titling as like a way to convey the words, because I think before that I was just a little bit like, well, people have these like pretentious titles and I don't really want to be that person. But then I started making these really like beautiful and like quiet pieces that like sort of suck you in, and you like start looking at them and then you read the title and they're just kind of like a gut punch a little bit. There's like sad like rape statistics and things like that. But
well, I think when people have the right to kind of act deep or pretentious about art, it's usually when it's like a serious subject. So it's kind of like you have a pass, because there was somebody I was listening to on another podcast who does art that's very far, it's just a totally different scene from what you do, but she is a photographer, and she mentioned a show she had. Her name is Sarah Bacone, Warren, Ohio. She did a show called Men. And it wasn't quite the same thing as you, but the subject matter was to put men in as vulnerable position as women feel. So it was a lot of like naked photos of men and stuff like that. And so it wasn't quite what you do, but it was, she was allowed to kind of be simplistic and assume people kind of could connect with her without explaining that much.
Right.
Like, I feel that's what you're saying when you talk about your blackouts and stuff, where you like, there's moments where you can explain, but there's other moments where you don't, and I feel you probably don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, you're dealing with a subject that's big.
Well, sometimes I think that's what I hope. Like, I'm very like timid about speaking about the stuff that I make. I've gotten a lot better, but I think it's made me work harder just to be like, let the work speak for itself, because sometimes like when I started out, it was just kind of like, oh man, I can't talk about this in front of a group of people because of like school critiques and stuff. It's like, I don't even know these people, they don't even know my story, like it's just gonna make me cry. And then it was just sort of like, I mean, I've been talking about it for like 3 years, so it's just sort of become one of these things that like sort of like dissociate myself from like experiences, and then I'm just like creating things that speak for like not just myself but a whole like a bunch of women, which is
great.
I think that it's like empowering a little bit to like feel like possibly I'm giving someone else a voice, because I've had people come up to me and share stories like after I show a piece or something, and it's just kind of like, they're like, I don't know how you say this like so easily or something, like I carry this with me too. And it's just like nice to know that I think it's like helping people.
Yeah. And I noticed that, so I've been to, I think, 2 of your shows, I believe, and I noticed that I had to go inside of something at your second show, and I had to go look up real close and read. And when I was in the exhibit and reading, I was hit hard and was sad, and it seemed to like convey the message of like the hidden people in the world of like sexual abuse, harassment, rape, all kinds of things. I mean, you could, the way that the stuff you put on there could have been taken a lot of ways too. In certain, well, you can apply it to other things, I suppose.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, you could tell enough what your theme was, but you could kind of take it and run with it too. It was like some vagueness in a couple places, and I wondered if that was something you meant to do, or if you were like, I chose the most beautiful words, or I chose the most meaningful to me, or that kind of thing.
Well,
And who wrote those? Did you?
well, yeah, like with my BFA show, I did sort of like cycle back into, I went, like my second to the last semester, I was like, I'm just going to use statistics to like speak for me. I don't really want to be, like everything I'm making is super, like way too personal. I just want to be more broad. And then with my BFA show, I think I was sort of like, actually I was being broad, and I was just kind of like trying to dissociate myself because it was something that I was working on literally the entire semester. So I was like, I get really like depressed if I'm working on one thing for too long, or if I'm not making enough, or if I'm not making anything. So I was starting to sort of like get really sad because it was, I mean, you saw it's just repetition of like the same form, the same like female pattern, and it's just like constant stitching in like the embroidery. It was the same thing for like 2.5 months of just like the same thing over and over. And like I installed the whole thing, and I was like sitting at the McDonough very late one night, installing like a couple days before the opening, and I was like, I'm doing this all wrong. Like, this is not, I mean, it is about every woman that goes through these things, but like I think I just wanted to cap off my like college experience by like finishing my story.
Okay.
So I did. I just like sat in a coffee shop with Dana Mooney, and we talked it out, and she was like, okay, you just have to write. You just have stream of consciousness. I want you to write for 2 minutes. Go. And she just timed me, and I just like, I didn't stop writing the whole time. And then I was like, let's go for 5 more minutes. And she's like, okay. So I went for 5 more minutes, and by the time the 5 minutes was up, I was like crying. And I'm just like, she's like, okay, let me read what you wrote, and like I'll pick the best little phrases. And I was like, okay. And I gave it to her, and then she's crying, so we're both crying in the coffee shop, and she's like, you nailed this project, you know. And I don't think it was until then that I was like, this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
So it was like it turned into like a reflection on the women that have to go through this in society, and then also my own experience going through like a rape incident. So it was just sort of like I did want to like tell my story, and then the night before the opening I was sitting in the McDonough until like 1 a.m. like stitching the little words into the fabric. But
oh my gosh, yeah. And so if people want to get to your art, is there a place to go, like online?
I have an art Instagram. It's Heather Seno, Seno art, and I don't know, that kind of serves as like just a visual
jumping off point for people. Maybe they'll make it to a show or something down the line or something. And so I another thing parallel that I drew, this other woman I mentioned who was a photographer, she said that men who walked through her exhibit had to be coaxed to read, and the women who walked through her exhibit were reading every little piece. And I know that when I walked into your exhibit, you had to point me in the direction of the stitching. Do you find that to be true with a lot of men?
I don't know. See, I find it to be true with people, especially that whole, at least for that piece, was like a lot of trial and error. I know like at YSU sometimes we have like limited facilities, so we didn't really have like a place to like test an installation.
Right.
And since it was so large, I didn't really know how people were going to like interact with it. So opening night was just sort of like me observing how people were successfully interacting or not successfully interacting, you know. So it was like, I mean, I learned a lot from opening night.
I got to watch a lot of people walk through there.
It wasn't
interesting.
It was so pretty.
Yeah, and there were so many different kinds of people there because they were like family of other people that were there that like might not usually go to art shows.
Right.
And like when they went through, they all seemed really respectful of the whole thing, though,
Yeah.
from what I saw.
Yeah, they were. It was really nice to see people take time to like go in, because that was also a fear of like, oh, people aren't gonna even enter into the
They're
space.
just gonna like blast
Look
through
at
all the
me.
fabric
Yeah.
and walk out
Yeah.
and be like and
Yeah.
scoff at. Did you get anybody that like, rolled their eyes at you?
I had a couple people. Oh, I had one person that was like, what are these, jellyfish? And I was like, no, it's, you know what, why don't you look closer? You know, it was just kind of like, and it took him, it was a man, it took him like probably a minute to realize that they were figures.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, and then he's like, oh my gosh, these are people. And I was like, yes.
Pretty abstract.
Yeah.
Like, so you can't blame him, but I guess I'm glad you didn't get that person like, I could have done this. Is this art?
Yeah.
What? And he has a
Yeah.
Brooklyn accent for some reason. No.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
They always do.
There's always those people that are like, I could have done this at my house.
Yeah.
What, is this pass for art now? And you're like, well, that doesn't matter if you could have done it or not. What does that mean to any?
Yeah.
You could have done a lot of things in your life and you
Exactly.
didn't. That's a weird, again, I'm defending myself against someone I just made up. But, like,
No, those are like, that's like a whole group of people.
Yeah, I've seen it. Before.
That happened at my junior review
Okay.
at McKelvey Gallery when I had it there.
Can you talk about what that looked like?
Oh gosh. Aggressive. That's what my professors told me.
Yeah.
It looked aggressive.
There was like stuff that represented blood that was involved.
See, I didn't take it as blood.
Oh, okay.
Everyone said that, and I was like, I was just trying to pick like a punchy color to like get like attention, and like to draw attention to like the shapes of the paper and everything. So this is also something you could see on my Instagram, but it was a giant like swirling paper thing that you could like walk into. It was like 80 feet of paper that I printed on. And yeah, no, my professor said that it was aggressive. And so that like,
so what? Yeah, this person. Who rolled their eyes at you?
yeah.
Well, who was that? Oh, the professor?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's who it was.
kind of.
Oh, that's not that bad. Then if that's the word, there's someone who's being paid to be a critic. I thought you said somebody. I thought you were about to tell me
No,
a story
there was
about.
a guy who
what's
was
this?
there, and he was just, he's like, so what is it? Well, and he was drunk because that gallery was in a bar at the time.
Right.
And he's just like, oh, what is it? Just like a bunch of paper that you just like wrote on? And I was like, I didn't write on this. So I started explaining to him like it was screen printed and spray paint, like all this, like the layers that went into it. And he's like, you just paint on walls and crinkle some paper and it's art. And I was like, yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
that's
like,
right. Like that's what's weird about it. Is
Yeah.
that, like that's exactly what is art.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know.
What, do you think there's magic involved?
Yeah,
like
like-
actual magic. Like I'm
I
not
don't-
trying to belittle anything, but
No, it's
that is the magic.
Yeah. And he was actually like he was drunk, but he
Sure.
stood there and he was like, well, what does it mean? You tell me. And I was like, this is not a game I like to play. So I was like, you tell me what and he actually like he came around at the end and he was like, he puts his hand on my shoulder like at the very end and he's like, I get it. And he's like, this is cool. And he like just left. But he was in there for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like really looking, and it was just, but at first he was just kind of like, what is this, art?
He's like, I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm actually your biggest fan.
Yeah.
I follow you on Heather Seno art on Instagram. I love it.
Love what you're doing,
Yeah.
girl.
I just like to bust balls. One of those. How great would that be?
Oh, that would have been fun.
Do you ever have those moments where, I don't know, I shouldn't assume you were a geek when you're in high school or anything, but do you ever have those moments when the people you thought of as the cool kids redeem you? Like there were a couple moments for me where like the kid from the football team came up to me, and of course none of his friends were around, but he came up to me and was like, I really like your music. Just little things that really meant
I
the
love
world
that
to
all
me.
these people are like from
They all sound
like
that way. None of them sound that way, by the way. I've like met 3 people that ever sounded that way in my entire life. But let's just say they did. But he that always kind of meant the world to me, because I was like, I reached outside of the like every predictable people that it reached like you want your art too. You're like, oh, for a moment it reached someone who you like definitely thought it might not or something.
Yeah. I think like I think that those moments, like the guy that, was giving me a hard time, like that night was sort of that for me, like the guy that thought that they were jellyfish.
Okay.
Like,
because he had a realization.
Yeah. But I don't really, like, I mean, you stayed here, I left, so I didn't do any of this. I don't talk to anyone. Like, I'm just like a recluse.
You're referring to, I stayed in Ohio.
Yeah.
And you left. Where'd you go?
California, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. And in between living here as a child, I also lived in Colorado. So it's just like, it's like a weird...
Yeah. You were out and exploring when the cool kids were like, "Where's Heather live? I wanted to tell her how much I really realize how cool she is." No,
No.
In Ohio. No, well, then tell me. Rewind a little more. Then tell me about high school. Then were you, as I presumed, were you like an artsy kid in high school, or a geeky kid, or were you one of the cooler kids, or that kind of cliquey thing? How did you feel in high school?
Well, I came to high school in Hubbard. I started high school in Hubbard after living in Colorado for 2 years. And high school seemed really good because in Colorado, like, people, like, threw lunches on me, and, like, I was that kid that, like, people were just, like, rude to.
Yeah, outcast.
Yeah.
I was an outcast.
Well, I didn't, like, and I also didn't talk to anyone. I was just, because we kept moving all the time, so I was just kind of like...
What's it worth?
Yeah. And... I don't know, so when I came here, I was just kind of, like, doing the same, like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't know anyone here. And then a few people, like, started becoming, like, friends. Ashley Miller, I think most people know her in Youngstown. And a couple other people that I still talk to. And, I don't know, I don't think at the time we were like, man, we are so geeky, like...
Well, no, not at the time.
Yeah,
right,
and I don't even think looking back, I don't know how my friends felt, but I just, after, like, moving so many times, you, like, sort of just build up some sort of, like, weird resistance to, like, social situations where it's like you're either super awkward and shy, or you're, like, ridiculously outgoing because you need to make friends really quickly, or it's not going to happen.
Yes.
So that's kind of, like, how, like, what high school was like for me. Like, I was kind of a little shy for, like, the first, like, month or so, and once I started learning people's names, I had my clique of people that we did stuff with, but I didn't really, I talked to everyone, and I was always just sort of, like, in the mix, and I don't know, like, hung out with, like, my core group of friends, but I wasn't really, like, I was never like, oh, this girl's popular, I can't really talk to her, she's, like, out of my, group or whatever.
Well, that's good. That's good that you never thought that, because I think I thought that, and I think I may have made the cliques in my head, you know what I mean?
Well, that's what, yeah, I think that's a thing that, like, when you are put into a situation that's different, like, moving as a kid all over the place, it's like, I don't even know what a clique is, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
From that perspective, It's just, like, it's different than the kids that I was going to school with. Like, my core group of friends all went to school with each other from pretty much kindergarten through, like, high school,
Yes.
And they were like, oh man, like, no, we would never date that guy, he's so gross, or like, and they're telling me stories from, like, first grade, and I'm like, I don't even care about that, like, why would I care, and different things like that, where they're like, oh, she was a real jerk in, like, 5th grade, so, like, now no one talks to her, and I'm like, I don't care, like,
there's a lot of people that just think that,
yeah,
just think that way, and they stand there and they kind of point out what kind of person you are. They're like, that guy's a jerk, that guy's a stoner, that guy's,
right,
they just hang out and say it. And I think I was in my head, I was thinking that.
I think that is a common thing that people do when they, like, go to school for their whole childhood with the same people, though. You end up realizing, like, different things about people, and you change as you get older, but like I missed all of that for like people in Hubbard, so I didn't really, also like Hubbard's really this weird cliquey place all in itself.
Really? Yeah.
So like I felt also like I still feel like I don't fit in here. So
But you're not scared to talk to the people, like you're not scared to,
no,
like,
because I think it's just like moving around my whole life. Like I still do this. Like if I'm out, I talk to people that I don't know. Like I make new friends like pretty easily because I don't know, like I'm obnoxious.
I mean, I know you and I know different people, but like in the world of the artsy, whoever we are now, like you and me, yeah, that's the only time you and I could ever be called obnoxious is in the group of people we know now.
Yeah.
Like in the real world, we're reserved people.
Yeah.
Like, but I have the same inclination to call myself that.
Yeah, like I feel obligated to sort of like talk to people and get to know people. I think that like I think it comes from a place of like not being here forever, where like I meet people like you who you kind of like know everyone in Youngstown. I feel like knows everyone.
They seem to.
Yeah,
They really seem to.
Yeah. And it's like it's weird, you know, going out and trying to like force yourself into social situations where you're the only person who no one knows because you're new, and then like you don't know anyone, but everyone else around you knows everyone else. So I just sort of was like, I'm just gonna get to know everyone. And that, I mean, I feel like I've been pretty lucky. I've made a lot of really good friends here, and they're like super sweet, like-minded, good art type people.
Yeah, and nobody seems to fall too far into anything either. Nobody seems to like be like, well, we're this group, and no one else is that. There's always that guy who reaches across the aisle who's like, what is this, crumpled up paper and whatever? Hey, and then he reaches across the aisle and he's like, you know something, I get it. You know, there's always enough. And maybe that's where those newbies come from sometimes. Like maybe, God, I'm reaching here, but maybe when you came back and you came and hung out in Ohio for long enough to make friends, that was you saying, hey,
what is this?
I get it now. I thought you was just a crumpled up piece of paper. I was like, and you are, but that makes it all right.
Yeah.
God, that's a big reach.
No, I love it.
But
that's a perfect
But
reach.
no, like there's I think the reason new people pop up is because people change. They were there the whole time. They've been there the whole time. But then all of a sudden you're like, I don't remember seeing this guy here before. Who's she? Who's that? You know, and like, you know, I think that's because I'm not saying all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to become a hipster. I'm going to become artsy. But there's somebody who's like, I went to this bar one time and caught this gallery show, or I went to this thing and found this band. I did something, and now I made a couple of their friends.
Yeah.
You know, and like slowly.
And then it's like a strange, weird connection. Like recently I've just become friends with like 2 different people who it's just kind of like, holy shit, like we know all the same people. How did we not ever meet each other?
Definitely.
And like that is a weird thing that happens in Youngstown to me a lot, because I haven't been here forever, so I don't know everyone. But like every once in a while, like I'll meet someone who to me is totally new, but they're like, we literally have always been at the same places at the same time, and we just like didn't even realize it.
That was my feeling with DJ.
Oh,
he acted like he was like, hey man, of course, right? And I was like, where'd you come from? And like he probably was just there.
Oh,
I didn't know.
Oh, he's always been there.
I didn't know that.
I've
you know, like for me, he appeared.
Yeah, we go way back, and to me he's always been there. I don't know.
And then I did this, you just said, like you said, then I was like, oh, he knows like 20 people I know, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it's, on one hand, Ohio is nice and cozy, but on the other, you learn new things every day.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. There's just enough space in here. So coming from, like, experiences such as, you know, experiences with rape, experiences with, like, things that really were, like, probably, I guess, described as horrible things in your life. What's with the positive attitude now?
Oh my God, survival? I don't know. I think I did that like depressed kid thing or I tried to, you know, for like a month in high school, and I was like, God, you know, like, I'm feeling super socially awkward. I don't really, you know, like, even I had my friends, but I don't know, it was always one of those weird things where, like, the people around me just, like, fit in better, and that was, like, very, like, a weird thing. Like, I don't know, like, most of my life in Ohio, I didn't really feel like I was home. Like, I was always just sort of like, this is not where I'm supposed to be, which is probably why I left right after high school. But I did do this weird thing in high school where I was like, realized that I started being like, oh man, girl, like, you hate yourself.
To yourself?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, we need to figure something out. So then I, like, got real, like, I don't know, like, started thinking about why, and had this weird, like, awakening as, like, a 16-year-old in, like, I don't know, like, the year 2000, you know, so, like, forever ago, before real internet, what internet is now. And, like, I was just like, oh man, like, maybe you hate yourself because of how you look. So I was like, I don't really understand that. I'm just a child. I don't understand why I would even think that. Because, I mean, now it's all like, oh, we, like, view the media, and then it's, like, subconsciously seeps into, like, our brains about what image we're supposed to have. Well, back then, people were just kind of, like, didn't get it, I think. So then I was, like, 16, and I was like, get rid of every mirror. And I literally stopped looking at my reflection for, like, 7 months.
7 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it was like I stopped using mirrors. Like, I just didn't, I brushed my teeth with, like, facing a wall. Like, I was just like, don't care. I can't think about this. And I just was, like, really happy.
Oh, wow.
Like, I just, like...
This is 2000?
Oh, yeah. Like, as a kid, I was just, like, when I don't give a shit about what I... Like, I mean, I was still wearing the same clothes, doing the same stuff with my hair, you know, like, I didn't do anything, and then, like, kind of at, like, 16, having that, like, awakening of, like, you aren't really, like, how you perceive yourself to be sometimes, or, like, even how others perceive you to be, and it, like, gave me some sort of, like, weird kid strength to, like, walk out into the world and just, like, be who I was and not be, like, afraid of that.
Kid strength.
Yeah.
I like that. So you're saying, like, you kind of experimented by not observing yourself.
Yeah.
So that you could realize that you weren't who you thought you were.
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm not even, like, what I look like, which is weird because now as, like, an asshole adult, I do, like, that Snapchat series of, like, this isn't even what I look like.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
But it's,
You were like, is this even me?
Yeah, well, that's how,
that worked for me for some. I like that.
I'm actually turning that into, like a physical photography piece. Like, it's in development.
You could say that about anything.
Yeah,
and
it
would
freaks
work.
me out. Like, I think, like, coming to that realization and having that strength just, like, into, like, my 20s and stuff, I don't know, like, I can't think of, like, really what other people think about me. I don't like to dwell on things for very long because then I get, like, sad, and then also with, like, terrible, quote, terrible things, end quote, that have happened to me, sort of just, like, realizing that making artwork about it is the only way that I stay, like, sane. I don't know. But, like, everything else is just sort of, like, comes from kid strength, and I'm, like, still a child, so it's like...
Sure.
I don't know.
I mean, now, how do you mean, when you say, is this really me, how do you mean that? What is that supposed to mean? Because I take it as, like... I kind of take it as, like, that, like... Is that really what I look like? Is that really me? Not in, like, I'm grossed out by myself, but you're just kind of, like... For me, it's more like you're just amazed by it. Like, you're kind of like, whoa, you know, like, look at... Is that what it's supposed to be? Or what's it mean to you?
Okay, like, in general, or, like, specifically that project?
That project.
Okay, the project has a lot of weird layers where it's like Snapchat was just sort of becoming a thing that like wasn't only for dicks, you know.
Oh,
so,
you really
like,
mean literally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then like people started using it more to like communicate. And I always think that that's like very interesting, like new platforms to try to challenge myself to like work within and make work from.
Sure.
And I just started like realizing, kind of leading up to that, I started like sending snaps of like me getting ready in the morning and being like, this is like just no makeup, I've just washed my face so I look like a creature. And you know, then it's like the slow like addition of all the layers. But like I tweeted this like around this time that like it's literally amazing the amount of makeup I wear to make it look like I'm not wearing any makeup, which I think is kind of like a common thing for girls now. Maybe I don't.
Really?
Well, no, not so much anymore. But at the time, like it was sort of like look fresh, light face, like all this stuff.
Okay.
And so then I was like, that's kind of, I think, how people try to be. And you try to like be, well, I'm not even wearing makeup. That's how fresh I look, you know. But
Yes.
it's like, it literally, I mean, it's still, it at the time and still, it only takes me 5 minutes to put on all my makeup. I can do it in the car. It's not, I'm being like dramatic about it.
No, you're not. Go with it. Go with it. It's
But
okay.
it's just like, that is still work. Like I don't want to just like walk out of the house some days. Like some days I'm like, girl, fix it up. But like so then it sort of like evolved into this series that had very strict parameters. So I gave myself rules, and the rules had to be that like my hair had to be done, it had to be the right lighting, all of my makeup had to be done a specific way, it had to be a specific angle, a specific filter, and then I would take the picture, you know, with the same expression almost every single time.
I know a lot of people like that.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
And then like I would take the picture, and also I did do like several takes of it. So then, like, I would find the one that felt just phony enough, but, like, still almost looked like me.
Yeah.
But then I would just, at the bottom, in the same, like, color every single time, the same script, I just write, this isn't even what I look like. Because then I would, like, look in the mirror and be like, I'm, like, so, there's just something so phony about it all.
Wow.
You know, like, and that just sort of, I don't know, like, I think it's, like, fun in a way. But then it's very real, like, that there is this sort of, like, aesthetic that people have on the internet that they try to portray in real life, but it's never really exactly their persona in, like, an Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Snapchat place. Like, it never can,
true.
because those are all, like, manufactured.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. It never can be. Even if they tried really hard to just snap some cruddy photo of them, it still wouldn't quite.
Yeah.
Because, well, let me ask you, okay, so don't use me as a barometer, because I never get the point. But when I saw that stuff, I didn't think that's what you were going for. You know, like, I was like more like, you ever go real close in the mirror?
Yeah.
And like look at your eyes. And
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my God, is that me? Is that me?
Yeah.
And it's not because you're horrified, but you're just like,
No.
can't believe I'm alive. It's one of those dumb, whoa moments where that's what I took when you did that. I didn't even notice. Like, I may have noticed that, like, oh, she looks like she doesn't have makeup on or something, but I didn't know that was the point.
Yeah.
Like, that's how, I don't know if that should make you feel better or not, like, but like, I took it more as like, this isn't even what no one ever knows what they look like.
Okay,
Like,
well,
you kinda
that's
have
where,
that.
right, and
Yeah.
that's where, like, towards, like, the middle of that project, there was, like, an article, circulating that was, like, something weird about maybe fake science is, like, you'll never really know what you truly look like because you're always looking at a reflection or a photo, and
That's
like
where my head's at.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the tail end of that project sort of like felt like it fit within that same like story where it's like you don't, like, I don't even know really what I truly look like to other people.
No one ever could. And that leads you back to the thing. Well, obviously you kind of opened with this and then we accidentally got here, but like when you said about the mirrors thing and stuff, like the whole point of it was that what other people say you are, you have to accept sometimes.
Yeah.
And like that's something that's really hard for people. Even doesn't really seem like it's something that has to do with how old they are. There's some people that just want to correct you on who they are, as if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that the things that you love them for, they don't really know that they do a lot of the time. Like, there's some things they know, but most of the stuff you like care about them for, they don't understand about themselves.
Yeah.
And that's prettier than anything they could ever like make you think of them.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's weird about it, is that they don't realize that what's good, what you really like about them is something they can't control very much.
Yeah.
And they're trying so hard to be like, I'm not like that. Please don't. Please don't. Like I told you, don't use me as a barometer. It's like, please don't do this about me. Please don't ever think this. I'm never late. That kind of crap.
Yeah.
Then you're just like, that you don't know what it is that you are.
Yeah.
You don't get it. You don't, because you can't.
Yeah.
Like, so it kind of goes with your Snapchat thing. Like,
Yeah.
So like immediately when I saw your first Snapchat, my mind went into the spiral into all those things I just immediately.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
At least you're like, that's so cool that you're like thinking about it, because
Yeah.
I feel like, and to know that, because I put those out and like I get like at the beginning, like I would get responses from people. I also get responses of people mimicking it back at me, and I screenshot all of them and save them.
That's cool.
So I don't know what I'm doing with that. I mean, I think I know what I'm doing with like mine.
Yeah.
But as far as like everyone else's, I don't know. Like, they're just like little treasures that
That you could possibly use a little collection.
I love them.
Well, that's kind of fun. I think part of the reason I said don't use me as a barometer, because I was like, I'm your ideal spectator too, because I'll think like you want someone to when they look at art.
Yeah.
Somebody, who was it? Somebody Hirschhorn, some artist named Hirschhorn, I really liked. I went to Pittsburgh, and me and my mom, and I think my friend Peppy went to Pittsburgh Art Museum, or something like that, and he had this whole room full of like magazine clippings and like pictures and like weird mixed media and stuff, and it was like somewhere in the ballpark of what you do. And then, so I think it was like fun because he kind of made you read as well.
Yeah.
There's something to making people read in art that like kind of works, I think.
Yeah.
For a lot of people. Is that something you want to do more, like with the "is this even how I look" thing? Like, do you want words in all your art, or is that just something that you can't, that you're like, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't?
I mean, I think that sometimes it just happens, and then there will be times where I will make something and I'll just look at it and be like, it does need words, and then I let it sit for like a while, and I, just think on it, and they come. But then other times the words come first and the piece is built out of the words.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I had when Aspasia was doing the Heart Youngstown, and like she featured me, like I had the one wall piece. Mm-hmm. The words in that piece came before any of the drawing came. Mm-hmm. So things like that happen a lot, and then other times it's like the visuals come before the words.
So that's cool that you don't have a certain system for that, just something, whatever comes first.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. And a lot of times, I think it's probably best to just work with staff, and I'm sure the words change a little sometimes.
Yeah, and when I was going through like my phase of like naming by using statistics and things like that, it was sort of came out of just reading things, like reading on the subject, getting more informed and trying to build something out of the information that I was like trying to store in my brain, because that's always, as like a visual art person, like that's just always how I remember things better anyway. So it's like, well, if I found something that was like super sad, or something that I felt deserved more attention, then I was like making art about it, and then like making that thing the title because it needed
to be brought to the forefront.
Yeah.
I like that you think visually, because I'm far from it. I know there was once or twice where my wife or a friend of mine or somebody would move a whole couch, move something big in either my own house or their place if I was visiting or something, and I wouldn't notice when I came in. I don't know what's wrong with me. And like, so like, I think it's really like well-rounded of me to pursue people like you for this podcast to like get me out of my comfort zone, because I don't think of things in pictures and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's always a really interesting idea to me, because it's just sound. For me, it's all sound.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Well, that's
You know.
and that's the same. Like, I like having musical friends because I can't. There is no part of my brain that can comprehend any of that. So it's like really interesting to me.
That's so different. Why? How could people be so different? Like in a good way, but like tell me something that's akin to this. So every time someone's talking to me, the notes of how they're talking go into my head and keep going. You know what I mean? Like when you just said right like that, that's like reverb. You know, that's still going. So what's the visual equivalent?
Oh.
That's a weird question. But like, what's something that just sticks visually in your head?
I do this weird thing where, like, if I'm talking to people, sometimes, like, I'll notice different features on them, because, like, I draw figures not very well, but I still try, you know, and I think that is, I'm always, like, looking at bodies in, like, a weird way that, or, like, a posture, or, like, someone will move, like, a hand a specific way, and I'm just like, oh, fuck, I gotta draw that now, you know, and it's like, that's how I, like, everything.
So
it's
those
like,
people go, their posture and their, whatever you know about them go into your head and start, like, being animated or something?
And then it starts being, like, then I can't, sometimes it's so, like, it draws me in so much that I'm just like, I didn't hear anything this person said for the last 5 minutes because I'm just looking at their wrist, and that is dumb, and, you know, and it's just like, but that, and then in my brain, like, I'll, like, try to trace it or whatever, like, while they're speaking at me, and I just, like, it gets really dumb.
That's interesting. So this seems like an obvious thing, but I'll just say it anyways, like, when you're so visually focused, you can't hear, and when I'm so ideologically focused, I can't see.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, I don't see that couch moved, and you didn't hear the person talking.
Yeah.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah.
How could that be? How could there be such a range in thinking? But it's cool.
Yeah, and like when I go to like Joe Max and stuff, and I'll like sketch for like an entire afternoon, and I won't hear the room. So yeah, that's like like I don't need headphones or anything because I'm just drawing, and not like people can be loud and like Jess or someone will come up to me like, "Did you hear that lady?" And I'm just like, what lady? You know, like, I don't know what's going on around me. But then, like, now that you bring that up, I don't know. It's like, I've always thought I was just, like, out of it. But now... But
at least you know there was a focus, like, that was bringing you away from something else. At least it wasn't like, I was just daydreaming, you know? Like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Because, I need to go to, like, a quiet library on, like, the 50th floor where no one's talking to, like, write visual, to, like, study or when I was in school and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I need to have noise.
You need
because
noise.
It makes me focus more.
Yeah, that's weird,
And then I don't hear any of the stuff around me. I'm just focused on whatever.
Because the song, if there's a song on at Joe Max, it'll make its way into what I'm writing. I can't do that. Yeah, it's not right. So, it's funny that it's so different.
That is.
Then, as a closing note for listeners, do you have any advice for creatives, like, in their pursuits, whether Ohio or otherwise, like, what they should do so they can sustain themselves? Because you've been an artist for a pretty long, like, decent amount of time now, I assume. What's your advice for people to keep going on stuff like that? Visual, music, anything.
Okay, well, my one professor told me this one time, that people who are successful in art will have, like, 500 failures to one good piece of art. So it made me just be like, well, shit, I have to make like 500 things before I just get one good one. So it's just like keep making, like just keep doing it over and over and over and over, and then you'll get the one good thing.
Cool.
You know, and it's like, I don't know, even like all of my failures like lead and like I find themselves like in these little like successes that I feel like I have. But even like the things that I like the most never really feel fully, like they don't feel like super successes, because I'm still in my brain going, you're gonna fail a lot more than you're gonna succeed. And just like come to terms with that, like, because you can't just be an overnight success, and everything takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice, I think. And then can you say, look, Mom, we're on a podcast?
Look, Mom, we're on a podcast.
Guys, thanks for listening. Make sure you guys go to Instagram and find Heather Seno, S-E-N-O, art. Heather Seno art. Check out her work so you can put something to this audio that you're listening to. And as far as I go, make sure you guys go to thirdclass.net or bullskit.com for music or little weird homemade comedy skits. Thanks for listening, guys, and everybody have a good day.
So it rained all day Thursday, then it rained some Friday too. It was real cloudy and it rained off and on, and Wade worked in the house putting up paneling, and I guess it's sort of a tedious day because there were like 6 or 7 people in the same house, and they didn't have enough saws or tape measures or anything for everyone to use, so they had to keep waiting to use each other's tools.